Good evening, party people, the place to be. It is the Political Deep Dive. I am Dave Valente. Thank you for joining us this week, wherever you're at, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, all the places. X, whatever they're calling it, Twix, I call it. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Helps get more eyes on the show and gets a good conversation going in the comments. Thank you, Janice, for joining us tonight.
And I want to give a special shout out to all the people watching us on the AHA whiteboard, where this being filled in with cartoon sketches of us at the same time, moving along to versions of Take On Me.
Nice. That would be awesome.
Yep.
Hey, Craig, how you doing? So joined as always this week by Dan the Man Fishman.
But not as always, because you missed me last week, and I missed you
last week. Although we got a perfect score in the quiz last week, so did we miss you?
Well, I'm here to ruin that. I am excited to be back. I was off not watching the eclipse because it was completely overcast where I was. However, we were in totality, so we got to see it go just completely dark, and then come back to light again, and that was pretty damn cool, I have to say. It makes me want to go see it again in a better place. It was pretty astonishing though. And even though it was overcast, we got to see on the horizon in the totality, lit up all the way around us in a circle. And that was pretty damn cool too, because we were in Oswego, so on the shores of Lake Ontario. And
nice.
It was pretty awesome.
And joining us, as always, AJ. Tired as a mother.
Hello. I am so tired. I'm so tired. We are all working so hard. We are just exhausted.
Well, you got a lot of stuff you're doing and getting ready for. So
I do. And then Charlie had an event this week, yesterday. Yes, and then of course the Etsy shop and getting everything organized for a yard sale. I think that I'm doing all the things that I can do to make money. Oh, and a GoFundMe. So there's a lot of things. So we're getting there. And I do have an application in. So if y'all want to send good vibes, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Up in the top corner of the screen right there, you see QR code for AJ's GoFundMe. Take your phone out, just take a picture of it, and it'll take you right to the GoFundMe. Donate whatever you can.
I just have to point out here
to a fantastic cause.
For Old Man Dave, you actually don't take a picture of it. You hold it up on your camera until the camera says exactly.
That's a square, and you touch the square, and then
exactly.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's
Dave is so old.
Honestly, if you can't donate,
roll the film out.
Yep. But also up at the top too is our like, share, and subscribe buttons. None of which work. No. But if you are on Facebook, you can click like. And if you're on YouTube, you can click like. And you can click share on both those things and subscribe on YouTube. Guys,
sharing means sharing.
Last week was a pretty high number of people watching for us.
Yeah, we had a good number.
But we want to do even better. So help us out. Share the thing. Tag it. People have been doing a great job of tagging us when we go online.
Thank you, Craig. We noticed.
Yeah, that was awesome. We got a lot of views off of that. Same thing for Janice. And guys, we really, what you give is how we live. That's actually not true. None of us are doing this professionally. But but AJ definitely needs more into the GoFundMe. So click on don't take a picture of it. Activate the QR code.
There it is.
Donate, and let's talk about what's happening this week.
Yeah, let's do that. So I guess the big news this week happened yesterday. Uh, on the first, was it the 1st of April, when Israel sent some bombs to the Iranian consulate in Damascus and killed several generals of the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, and one of the higher ranking generals within that Guard Corps. Um, and in response, yesterday, Iran sent 330 some odd pieces of either missiles. There were cruise missiles, there were ballistic missiles, and there were drones that were sent from Iranian territory to ostensibly attack the Israelis. The Israelis, the United States, France. I've seen reports that Jordan actually took
Yeah,
out.
I saw that Jordan intercepted a few too.
Yeah, I think they're trying to keep that on a low profile. I don't know that it'll play well at home. They knew that they were.
And since Jordan has also announced that they are closing their airspace to
Israeli response.
no to Iran,
Oh, okay.
not
Well,
to
I know
Israel.
that they had closed ahead of the attack. Both Iraq and Jordan had closed their airspace. Of course, that didn't matter. The stuff was coming anyway.
Right.
But Israel, United States, whoever, France, Britain, Jordan, very successful in intercepting. They said they got 99% of it, which means out of about 330, was three or so may have gotten through and reached their intended targets. Um,
Yeah,
you know,
there's a lot of talk
it,
about that. Some people say that Iran launched an attack that they knew Israel could defend against
so.
very competently. I
It
personally don't
was
believe that.
well.
I believe.
I think Iran was doing a shock and awe and opted for quantity over quality of attack.
Well, I mean, what we know about Iranian drones, based on Russia using them, is that quantity is quality. Because the state of air defense right now is that you have to overwhelm the air defense with quantity.
Yeah.
However, the and in this case, the quantity was pretty high, but in many respects, Israel's already been dealing with this on similar numbers. So the
Oh yeah.
Iranian number of attacks is on par with what they've been getting from Gaza and to a little bit from the West Bank. The difference, of course, is that the launches from Iran are detected,
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour before they reach.
Well, it took 3 hours for the drones to get there.
Yeah, for the slow flying propellers, and there were some missiles
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and they weren't able to coordinate everything to arrive at the same time either.
Yeah. It was. I mean, there's also reports that Iran had warned some of our allies in the Middle East, Turkey, and a couple other countries, that this was coming a couple days ahead of time. Whether it was intercepted by intelligence or Turkey in turn told us, or in turn told Israel, or told us and we told Israel, um, I think also
Right.
helped the fact that Israel and the United States and all those countries were able to intercept, a lot more than if it was just a surprise attack. Although that distance from Iran to
Yeah, there's no
Israel,
surprise attack.
yeah, there is no surprise attack.
I mean, right? Israel's used to them coming in from 6 miles away, 3
Yeah,
miles away.
but this was kind of a good test for. It's not just the Iron Dome, which Sean Levsor talks about. The Iron Dome, which is generally the low level rockets that you see come from Gaza, from Hezbollah in Lebanon, or the West Bank. That will take care of those things. They also have Arrow system, and they also have. I think the Arrow system takes care of ballistic missiles, and then David's Sling, which takes care of the cruise missiles.
Yep.
Those all worked as you would want them to in an attack like that.
Right,
It's crazy.
as you could help for.
Yeah.
Now what's of course interesting about this is what is the response going to be? And prior to going on the air, we started off having a conversation about,
Yeah.
this
Let's
is
start the show.
This is Iran's response to Israel attacking the Iran embassy in Lebanon or Syria.
No, Syria.
Which, frankly, I would be more inclined to say Syria should respond to that than Iran. Like if there were an attack on an embassy in the United States, even if it weren't the American embassy, the United States would respond. However,
we responded to an attack on our embassies in Dar es Salaam. And
no, I mean we right for exactly the same reason that Israel's going to respond here. You can't ignore an escalation. An attacking homeland is an escalation from an attack on an embassy. So it's going to be met, I feel very confident, with an attack on Iranian soil. Now,
I think so too. And it's here's what I don't want to have happen. One, that it is a gross escalation, like it is a a nuclear bomb over Tehran.
Right.
That's what I don't want.
Unlikely.
I also don't want them to bomb a nuclear facility, which, if you saw John Bolton on CNN last night, his war boner is fully stocked right now. He's in painful mode right now. Yeah. And, I think that Israel is going to respond. They're going to attack, probably military. We talked about oil refineries, oil
bomber refinery. The other interesting thing that people have talked about is Iran only has 2 ports capable of taking super tankers. Those would be very easy to destroy.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because it doesn't take out the oil itself. So Iran can, if they had any allies, they could ship it overseas, like Russia or China or something like that. But yes, AJ.
So if Israel retaliates, how long until we're involved or there?
It's an interesting question. I mean, technically speaking, the U.S. was involved in the last one because the U.S. shot down missiles that Iran had sent against Israel. Okay. So the United States is at least peripherally involved right now, trying to stop escalation. They weren't able to stop Iran's round. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Israel. On the other hand, I mean, I do think that if Israel were to say, this is our concession, stop talking about calling for ceasefire or anything else, but we're not going to, we're not going to destroy Iran's oil capacity or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think that's likely, though, because I think that the precedent it sets for Israel is very dangerous for the future. If Israel lets this pass, they let Syria do this. They let the Houthis. And actually, there's an interesting thing because the Houthis actually have been firing Iranian missiles into Israel. Yeah. So it's not like this is what, Iran's fingers are all through everything that's happening right now. And if Israel lets this pass, then the United States is going to have to do something. And now the United States said they're going to do something at the G7 summit. Maybe they will.
More sanctions. That's all the United States really has in their pocket is sanctions. Yeah. And those don't work. I mean,
it's an interesting place to be. I mean, I do go with the, my favorite method of electronic warfare, which is to brick every iPhone in the country. That's always a fun option. However,
I like my iPhone. What did it do to you?
Well, you don't live in Iran. But if you did, we still wouldn't brick your iPhone. I would have
already been dead, let's be honest.
Exactly. It's like, you can't vote in Iran, so it doesn't matter. However, yeah, and I just
Actually, women can vote in Iran. Is that they just don't have any other rights at all. So
right. Well, right, because they had the vote before.
yeah.
And actually, women had a ton of rights in Iran. We can talk again about our favorite movie, Persepolis.
Oh, how soon is this going to be like, women used to have rights in America. What's going on?
Well, it's funny you say that because
All the time.
women could vote in the United States before the 19th Amendment, and then they all lost their rights when essentially women lost the right to vote everywhere. But in the beginning, when the country was first formed, it was property owners and it had nothing to do with gender.
Oh yeah, and, I think by
I
1804
know.
though, by 1804 that had all been wiped out. So
Well,
Oh,
right.
yes.
I think
I'm just a girl.
maybe New Jersey was the last state that had any women's suffrage
I
until
also believe it
1919.
was New Jersey.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm interested to see what Israel's response is. Um, again, my whole thing with this whole October 7th and everything that's gone on in Israel um, is that this has kind of been coordinated by the Russians because I think the Russians want to distract the United States from giving money to the Ukrainians. And the best way to do it is to attack the Israelis using Iranian. Now,
I think
the
there's
reason
something
why
to
I think
that.
October 7th uh, was a Russian operation is that this wasn't a typical Hamas operation. It wasn't a typical Iranian operation either. And this response to this attack wasn't a typical Iranian response to an attack. I mean, if the Iranians wanted to have more of a successful quote unquote on the ground
Right.
operation, they would have just bought some suicide bombers. They would have just paid for some suicide bombers from the West Bank, come over and blow up some stuff.
Yep.
They've been having big protests in Israel. You get a suicide bomber among that, you've got tons of garbage, tons of bad press, and that would have been far more meaning. I mean, this one got all the press, but there was nothing that actually, there was very little that happened.
I'm going to call out Junior here. Junior, it's not a genocide if you can end the fighting by releasing the hostages that you're currently raping. That's not a genocide.
I will say, are they really interested in getting the hostages back though?
That's a fucking dehumanizing statement. What kind of piece of shit do you have to be to say you don't care about your own hostages? You don't care about your own people? Fuck that shit. That
I
is
don't think
bullshit.
I don't think that Netanyahu's.
That is bullshit, David. To say you don't care about your own people, that makes you subhuman. Go ahead and say subhuman if that's what you want to say.
No, I don't think subhuman. I think that his calculation right now is that at any cost he wants to get rid of Hamas. That's a tactic, absolutely. And while I'm sure he wants to get the hostages back, I don't think that he
Is
that's
Israel
his.
is Israel going to allow themselves to be dictated to because you have hostages? No. In that case, that doesn't mean they
I
don't
don't think
care
so.
about the
No.
hostages. It means that they're saying that we have the place, we have a place where we say we know what we have to do. What we have to do is get the hostages back. If the hostages are returned, then absolutely, we can say, Israel, you're in the wrong now. You don't have anything else to fight for. Your hostages have been returned. But they haven't done that. And every person who calls for a ceasefire before the hostages are returned is siding with Hamas because
No, I
that's a
think the
Hamas
hostages
victory.
are absolutely part of the whole idea of a ceasefire. Is that
It has to
ceasefire,
happen
return the
first.
hostages.
It has to happen first. Anything else is a Hamas victory because
I mean,
Hamas's tactics are we can outlast the Israeli response. Israel will have to stop. And anything less than an Israeli victory is a Hamas victory.
I tend to not like the whole idea of the zero sum game here. I
But
think
it is
that
a zero sum game. It is a zero sum game when you are fighting for your survival. And Hamas set the rules when they said, we will destroy every Jew. When we said we will destroy the state of Israel. That is the zero sum game. Okay,
well,
that's
they're
the
also. I
zero.
mean, that's
Their
what they're
end
thinking.
result
It's a
is
zero
zero.
sum game, but they're thinking it's a zero sum game in that we give up the hostages, they're just going to take us out anyway. They
Yeah,
don't.
Junior,
There's
all
no
the
trust
hostages
there.
have to be released. The war doesn't end until all the hostages are released.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
and that's just,
I agree with that. I just
yeah.
I don't know that I think
And everybody like
Netanyahu
Junior is actually aiding Hamas because he's saying that the problem is that that he's saying 100 is enough. All the hostages have to be released. And it's not a genocide when you can end the fighting by releasing all the hostages that you're currently raping. Nope, just the Hamas, just Hamas. Anybody who doesn't want to be around when Hamas is getting attacked needs to figure out what they want to do. But Israel has a goal. The only way they can prevent themselves, because let's talk about what's happening, right? The hostages who are being kept right now, the hostages who are being kept are the ones who were kidnapped and then raped and now are being forced to carry those babies to term. Okay? That's disgusting. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Now there are men as well in that group. And you know they're suffering similar things. But all the hostages who were returned said absolutely, we were raped on a daily basis, all the women. So it's not like that's not happening.
No, and I agree that all of that stuff that's going on with the what Hamas is doing to the Palestinians there, to the hostages there is inexcusable. It's a war crime
Right.
that everybody involved
and
should be
over.
hung in
Junior,
the head.
you're talking about the problem with Palestinians. The Palestinians could have peace right now, and everybody who wants it should be calling for Hamas to return the hostages. Everybody who doesn't call for that, everybody who talks about a ceasefire, you are giving aid and succor to Hamas. You are telling them, yeah, you guys do your shit. Hang on to those hostages. Don't surrender them.
But so, what about negotiation? What about sitting down? Okay, we'll stop hostilities the moment the hostages are released. And I know that that's been put out there, but again, there are. I'm sure that the people involved in
Hamas rejected 3 ceasefires recently that called for them returning hostages.
Yeah, and it depends on what was offered on the Israeli side. Is Israel still going to prosecute the Hamas people? And I say to an extent, yeah, there's a problem with the Hamas people because they're doing rape and they're doing some really awful shit.
But it's all predicated, even before all of that, when they have a charter that calls for the destruction of the state of Israel. We want to talk about an apartheid state and say, oh my God, you search all the packages that are coming to our country. That's because in your charter, you say that you're going to just kill us and you're going to destroy our state. When, for the year that Gaza was free and Hamas was not in charge, it wasn't like that. It was when Hamas came to power with their statement. But if you look at 2005 to 2006, in 2005, there are some restrictions. But you know who said that there should be the restrictions on Gaza? God, I can't think of his name.
Yasser Arafat. Well, there's Yasser Arafat. He died.
Not Yasser Arafat, but Yasser Arafat.
The next guy, I can't remember.
The guy's in charge now, Mahmoud Abbas.
Abbas, yeah.
Mahmoud Abbas also is against Hamas.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. I mean,
and let me tell you something. Mahmoud Abbas is not committing a genocide against Palestinians. So you can be against Hamas, and not be committing a genocide. Genocide, and the other thing about it is, let's talk about an actual genocide, right? So in Congo, when there was an actual genocide, 3 out of 4 Houthis were killed. Hutus, sorry. In Israel, in Europe, during the Holocaust, 2 out of 3 Jews were killed. Think about that. Think about every Jewish person that you know, and now kill 2 of them. 2 out of every 3 of them. It's an unbelievable number. As it turns out, we now know that Hamas was lying about the casualties in Gaza, and they're still sort of lying because they're saying, 22,000 killed. However, the 10,000 of those are combatants, people who actually died fighting, soldiers. So it is, people want to call it a genocide. That's okay. That just looks stupid. You look stupid. But people who are arguing for a ceasefire are making it worse. If people really are concerned, they should say, let's stop the fighting. And we can stop the fighting right away by having the hostages all returned. If the hostages are returned, everybody now has leverage to say, okay, Israel, you've accomplished your goals. Okay, now you can start bringing the pressure. But until that happens, there's not going to be any change, and the fighting will keep going on. So people who really care about the Palestinians, like the Americans, like Joe Biden, are calling for the hostages to be returned.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, there's nothing else. Israel will fight to the death. Until then, people got to choose who they want to side with.
But there's not a lot of trust internationally for what's going on with Israel. I mean, they've had how many resolutions passed against them in the United Nations, which again have no teeth whatsoever. But
well, not only have no teeth, but let's talk about what happened. Right from 1933 until 1939, Jews
mm-hmm.
in Europe, especially in Germany, are going through the absolute shit. Right,
yeah,
and the world knows about it. And what happens? Neville Chamberlain comes home and he says, we're not going to go to war with Germany. We're going to have peace in our time. The church bells ring. People are crying in the streets over relief. And you know what? Fuck those Jews who are getting exterminated in Germany. So the state of Israel is like, you know what? We could give two shits what the rest of the world thinks about our safety right now. The whole point of the state of Israel is that this is the one place, everywhere else in the world will put up with it, right? Harvard wants to be anti-Semitic. Fine. Okay, you want to persecute Jews in Saudi Arabia, and you want to talk about a real genocide. Look at the number of Jews who are alive in Northern Africa and in the Arab countries prior to 1945 and the number who are there now. Okay, in some Arab countries, what used to be a population of hundreds of thousands of Jews is down to double digits.
Oh, yeah. Yemen is one of the biggest ones. Yeah,
exactly. That's a real genocide. So now, in this situation where Israel is facing an enemy who has said, we truly are dedicated to genocide. Okay, because that's what Hamas has said, right? Not only that, just recently they doubled down on it. They said, we're going to do October 7th over and over and over again. That's their own words. How can you possibly leave somebody who said that they will do that in a state where they have the capacity to do that? So that's my piece on it. We can have peace. I would like to see peace. It can only happen when the hostages are returned. The quicker that everybody calls for that, the faster it'll happen.
Well, so, I mean, here's what I'm a realist when it comes to international politics. I think that when it comes to what happens with Israel, let's say Hamas releases the hostages tomorrow. I don't think it stops the war, and I don't think that even the United States putting pressure on Israel. I mean, the U.S. has been trying to put pressure on Israel this entire time to kind of direct this war and direct some aspects of it. I don't think the Israelis are going to care. At least the Israeli government, the Israeli people are split on this. But I think the Israeli government is going to continue to prosecute this to the fullest extent. And even
once all the hostages are returned, there is a legitimate place for Israel to say, and look, if you get two Israelis and ask them for a political opinion, you're going to get three answers. That's just the way we roll. There is a lot of controversy about Netanyahu. I think.
Oh yeah.
People who know the internals know that most Israelis, after the Supreme Court thing, would prefer to have seen him replaced. But that can't happen now. Israel is never going to make a decision that shows weakness when in a state of war.
No,
so the war has to end.
because I mean, I saw or I heard him on CNN. I was going to, I think it was St. Patrick's Day. I was going to pick up my wife from the nursing
Yep.
home, and they kept pressuring him about, are you going to call an election? And he's like, why are we going to call an election in the middle of a war? Like,
Right.
and he said, and then they said, well, are you going to call an election as soon as the war is over? He, again, I think that's kind of a foolish thing in that, why are we going to telegraph what we're going to do once the war is over? Again, you're setting a boundary that says, well, if Hamas just holds on long enough that they're
Right. Exactly.
I thought the CNN questions to Netanyahu, while there are questions to ask of Netanyahu about his preparation for October 7th, about why they were so caught with their pants down. And this is my part of the Russian thing, is that I thought they used Russian intelligence for the whole thing.
Yep.
That through Iran to Hamas. But why were they caught so with their pants down so badly on that day? When
Yep.
we know that, I've got a friend that works with an aid agency that serves the Palestinian area, and she's talked about the just going from the Palestinian area into Israel. That as a Jew herself, how hard it is just to get into Israel, and how much trouble they give her just for working with the Palestinian aid agencies. But, why did that whole thing happen? And that's the questions you should be asking. And I get, we're in a war. We probably won't focus on that until after the war, but there were some questions to ask Benjamin Netanyahu at that point. They just didn't do it. And that was a failure.
And I agree with you 100%. Those are legitimate questions. There is, a reality in terms of what people without technology can do, or without, the high level of technology, intelligence, security, stuff like that. We saw it in Vietnam, right? The VC were able to pull off some really astonishing things once they learned the keys to operational security. They didn't need technology. They didn't need wired encryption or anything like that. They were able to do things by word of mouth and passing things around. Who trained them to do that? It was the Russians.
Yeah.
The Russians are really good at that shit. It's entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because they know that we're going to come to Israel's defense. They know that, and when the money is when the federal government's talking about giving money to countries, if Israel's under attack, they're first in line.
Right. Now,
and that takes money out of Ukraine.
Right. But
Debate
although,
how much you want to give to Ukraine, but that's
right.
why this is happening.
If you consider the expenses, right, what Israel gets is a drop in the bucket compared to what Ukraine has gotten so far and what Ukraine's about to get. I mean, I do love the idea that Ukraine is currently getting weapons that are paid for with Russian money because of the asset seizures.
Yeah.
How I think that there's a lot that Israel needs to change. There's a lot about Netanyahu that's wrong. It has to be a two-state solution. Okay, it's ridiculous for him to say that it is a one-state solution, because the reality of it is that if we did it right, and they make the Palestinians wealthy by becoming great trade partners with them, that would be fantastic. Those countries won't go to war anymore. You think about, who are the most arch of enemies in Europe, right? It's England, France, and then, Germany doesn't really become a country until 1870, but then the Germans get in there. Now, those guys would never consider going to war to each other because they make each other wealthy. Okay? The same thing can happen with Israel and Palestine. The beaches in Gaza, before the destruction, it's funny, Palestinian activists show all these videos of what Gaza was like before it was attacked. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a great place to go for a beach vacation. And if there's anybody that loves beach vacation, it's Jews, right? Miami can tell you this. We would love to go there and spend money. The thing about it is that you just have to reach a very simple standard of saying, you know what, we're going to take it out of our Constitution that we are dedicated to killing all the Jews. Okay? Hamas can do that.
Sure.
We'll get along. And here's the other thing about it. Who has removed more Jews, more Israeli citizens from Gaza than anybody else? And the answer is the Israeli army.
Yeah.
In 2005, when Israel agreed to give Gaza back to the Palestinians, right? Prior to then, Gaza was actually controlled by the Egyptians, but the Egyptians eventually said they didn't want it because they didn't want the Palestinians. And that's why, a lot of people know there are actually two ways that you can get into Gaza on the land. One is from Israel, but the other is from Egypt. The Egyptians have closed that border. They don't let any Palestinians go through there. And when the Palestinians dug tunnels to get through the Egyptian border, the Egyptians flooded them, not with seawater, like what Israel is doing, but with raw sewage. So,
damn.
Yeah, Egypt doesn't want.
But yeah, I mean, well, like I was talking with the Jordanian army, they don't really want to put out there that they're helping Israel with with shooting down drones because they have a massive Palestinian population there.
Right.
So that would aggravate the population there. But yeah, I mean, if you want to hear people talk bad about Palestinians, they're
ask the Arabs,
the surrounding countries.
Exactly, the Arabs hate the Palestinians.
And I think it's because of what can come from hosting Palestinians, like Lebanon. My God,
right.
How many times has Lebanon just gone through it because the Palestinians will fire rockets into Israel and then cause,
Well, I mean, some Palestinians, some Hezbollah. Right?
Well, it's Hezbollah. Yeah.
Right. Hezbollah is all Iran. Right. I mean, it's not necessarily Iranian citizens, but Iran founded Hezbollah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's Iran money, but these are Palestinians that are in the rank and file.
I mean, it's right. It's easy to recruit. It's easier to recruit Palestinians for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Palestinians, right? There are more Palestinians in Jordan than there are in Gaza and the West Bank combined, and they are very oppressed there. They're not allowed to have their own state. They're not allowed to vote. Nobody says, "Oh, it's a fucking apartheid state in Jordan," when it really is, as opposed to in Israel, where Arabs make up a little less than a third of the population, right? 2 million Arab citizens in a country of 7 million.
Yeah.
Those guys, those Arabs, they don't think they're victims of a genocide right now. Anyway, we can argue about all the other things, but there are a group of people out there who are trying deliberately to trivialize the word genocide. And it's a much larger piece than that. In 2002, the American Nazi Party came up with a plan to make Hitler.
Nazis.
Yeah, we hate Nazis. They came up with a plan to make Hitler not look so bad anymore. And so what they did was they started to say, you know what? George Bush is like Hitler. And this is after 9/11 and some of the draconian things that came through. They started thinking, they said, Bush is like Hitler. Invaded Iran, Bush is like Hitler. Bush is like Hitler. Chances are pretty good. Everybody listening to this radio show heard some of that in 2003, 2004 election cycle. Bush is like Hitler. Democrats started repeating it. But the fact of the matter was that was all set into motion by the American Nazi Party because they thought, you know what, if people say Bush is like Hitler, they'll say, well, maybe Hitler wasn't that bad because, Bush, I mean, we not like him, but he's not terrible. It's not like he killed 6 million people or 12 million people really who died in the camps. It was all planned. And so here, there's this group of people who are trying to say genocide. We're going to trivialize genocide by saying everything that we don't like is genocide. But the reality of it is genocide requires, first of all, an absolute motive to kill people based on their genes, based on who they are. You can't say that it's a genocide going on in Palestine, in Gaza, when there are all these Palestinians that the Israelis could be killing if they wanted to. They have easy access to them. But instead, Palestinians are productive members of the Israeli society. Listen, is it picture perfect for Palestinians in Israel? No, definitely not. I would say that it's on par with being black in the United States. There is systemic discrimination against black people in the United States. There is systemic discrimination against Palestinians in Israel. There's no question about it. On the other hand, there are several Palestinians elected to the Knesset, Israel's Congress. There are Palestinian police officers, people who, now Israel has ridiculous gun control. No American would be happy there because you're not allowed to own a gun in Israel. Now, if you're in the army, which, everybody's required to do 2 years in the army, you are required to carry your service weapon, which is an M16, with you at all times. So if you walk around in Israel, you will see young people with M16s over their backs or over their fronts, carry zero, whatever. That's part and parcel. But the average citizen is not allowed to have a gun. But Israelis allow Palestinians to become police officers, and those guys do get to carry guns. You're not in a discriminated class, and intentionally discriminated by the class if the government lets you work in law enforcement. Okay, now there is systemic discrimination. I don't want to say that it isn't. I don't want to say that Palestinians have it great in Israel, but this is what I do know. If you are gay and you're a Palestinian, you apply for asylum and you live in Israel, because the largest LGBT parade for 1,000 miles is in Tel Aviv. Oh, yeah. And in Gaza, they have honor killings where parents are allowed to and supported to kill their gay children because they embarrass the families.
Or their daughters or
their daughters who have
outside of marital sex. Yeah.
Exactly. Premarital sex, or who, are even accused of being forward and having premarital sex. Right. Yeah. All this bullshit that's going on. In that respect, there's no comparison at all. The real people who are suffering in all of this the most are, without question, the Palestinians. And the way we help the Palestinians immediately is to get all the hostages returned so that the war can end. One follows the other. The next step on that, we want to free Palestine from Hamas. There's no reason why the Palestinian people have to be suffering. And you know what? We see a great example of it now. The amount of aid, everybody hears about all this aid that's going into Palestine right now, or into Gaza. There's more than enough there, but Hamas is confiscating it. You see Palestinians posting about it all the time. It's no good for us to get all this aid because we don't have any money to afford it because we can't work for it. Afford it. This is supposed to be coming in for free into your country. But Hamas needs money, so they seize the supplies and then they sell them to the people. They're forcing them to sell.
I mean, that's actually a very classic move when there is a war. I mean, it's in fact, I read an academic article at one point when we were studying the war in Sudan between Sudan and what eventually becomes South Sudan. And this academic was like, look, if you want to stop war, stop giving aid. Yeah. Because you're going to starve one side or the other, which is awful. Like, you don't want to starve people.
Right.
Like, that hurts me to my core to think that you would starve people. But what ends up happening is that the aid that you send over gets confiscated by the rival army or one of the armies, and is used to fed and sustain that army. And those people are going to starve anyway.
Which is why I think, and I don't know where this is, but remember the U.S. at one point in time was building this giant dock that they were going to use to unload supplies. And if you give people flour, right, and water, that's enough to start with. Beans and rice, we want to be conscious of people's culture and not give them anything that is potentially offensive. But flour, water, beans, and rice, people can live a long time on that. It certainly stops the famine.
And we've been feeding people in Middle Eastern countries for ages, that in refugee status, that
Yep.
we know how to feed a ton of people.
What, as a matter of fact, yeah, I know a fair bit about that. I have seen the halal MRE. People who don't know, MRE stands for Meals Ready to Eat. It's what soldiers get in the field. Most soldiers will tell you meal ready to eat is 3 lives for the price of 1. However, the halal or kosher, and the one that the Army turns out is both, and you can make them both, it's heavy on a lot of crazy things like, peanut butter and chickpeas, lentils, stuff like that. Things that, it's essentially a vegetarian meal because it's easy to make vegetarian halal and kosher. But it feeds people. It gets them their 2,000 calories a day, that sort of thing. We're good at distributing that. The thing about it is, and this is where my thought as to why MREs aren't necessarily the greatest. MREs are easily transferable. They last forever. You can say, oh, you know what? I'm going to sell an MRE for $3. On the other hand, a cup of flour and a bottle of water, and let's just say a cup of flour, a cup of rice, and a cup of beans, that's not an enormous amount of food, but it's something. And it's not as tradable. It's only good for making food and eating. And
if you have the means with which to cook it.
Yes, I will tell you that, my people, we're coming up on Passover. You can, in the Middle East, make matzah, put it out on the stones, and
Chuck. Yes, that is my favorite joke. What is the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean?
Yeah, you can't make a garbanzo bean.
No,
Trump can't play a garbanzo to bean on him.
No. Donald Trump has never had a garbanzo bean on his face.
Yes, that's it. I knew there was something else about that.
That is my favorite joke. I was going to say that when you started talking about chickpeas.
There are 2 other jokes just like that. What's the difference between a vitamin and a hormone? You can see it coming already.
Yeah.
You can't make a vitamin. What's the difference between a piano and a fish?
I don't know.
You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish.
Wow.
I'll be here all week. All right. Dave,
I think we've killed
this. I got a little hot there. I want to apologize for my tone and my demeanor.
No, and like when I talk about Netanyahu, I think his is more of a political calculation. For us, it is a, you want to make sure you get the hostages. I mean, like how many TV shows and movies we have that talk about getting the hostages back at all costs without, and recently we had Louis Gossett Jr. die, and he was talking about Iron Eagle and all those those types of movies. We always get the hostages home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Netanyahu wants to completely eliminate Hamas, and I think that is an obstacle at this point because I just don't think Hamas trusts that they have the hostages, and the hostages are that one point that can we broker our safety off of those hostages?
Absolutely, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Why does everybody want to let them do it? Is the question.
I don't know. Can Israel broker their constitution, get that stuff about eliminating Israel out of their constitution, killing all Jews out of their constitution? Can that be a part of the whole negotiation?
Maybe. Remember though that's Hamas specific.
Yeah.
Okay. That wasn't the goal, and it's not the goal of the Palestinians living in the West Bank.
No, not at all.
And the Palestinians living in the West Bank, listen, they're not going to tell you it's perfect there either. However, if you ask them if it's better than it was 30 years ago, they'll say yes. They're wealthier. They have better health
Sure. I
care.
mean,
Is
there's
Israel giving them the COVID vaccine?
yeah. I mean, there have been issues in the West Bank, especially with settlements and things like that. I think
Oh, absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
a big problem that needs to be addressed, especially with a two-state solution.
Yep.
Because if you create the West Bank as an independent country, what happens to the Jewish people who've moved on the other side of the line
Well, but we actually know what's happened because that happened once before.
with
What
Gaza?
happens is, yeah, in Gaza, the Israeli army comes and lives up to its part of the obligation, and it removes those Jewish settlers by force.
I'm reading Craig's comment. Humanitarian vegetarian. I've
I
had
have,
some MREs before. I've never been in the military, but I've had some MREs before. We used to have like an army surplus thing
yep.
down the street, and I'm sure it was like probably 20-year-old MREs, and they were probably well, I don't know if they have a shelf life or not, but at least
I,
radioactive half life.
yeah, I would say at 20 years, they're not,
Probably not fresh, but
yeah,
they were never fresh.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Sounds like a country song.
it is.
It's a modern country song.
All right.
So
Should
let's
we
talk.
talk about Etsy?
Let's talk about Etsy.
Ah, I also have an Etsy where you can not only
I don't want to cover
buy
up
random
Jay.
things that I make up, but you can get political deep dive merch. We have hoodies and
Ooh,
t-shirts and mugs and stickers. Also, you can support your favorite podcast because if you're here, we assume that you like us. And you might want to, advertise that. Oh, there he goes. See? It's got a little sub on there, and then it's got political deep dive down the sleeve because I just think that's super cool. There's also the random stuff. There you go.
Nice.
The random things that come out of my brain. Things how this is all
gotta get my
going
ears back on.
towards
Pause.
getting my family out of Tennessee because it's controlled by Republicans. Louis the Liberty Dog
Louis, look at him go.
has decided that his likeness
Literally.
can be used for the cause. Um, so we've got that, and that was drawn by Charlie for Art by Ash on Facebook. And we also have this for your election season, folks. Remind your neighbors. Never
There you
vote
go.
Republican again, even if that's the only choice, because it's not actually the only choice. You can write in NOTA.
Or you could just blank the ballot.
This is
Dave's
true.
hairy balls.
Blank the ballot is a lot nicer to your local election officials
I don't
than
care about that.
writing.
I don't care about that. If they were actually
Blank
doing
without.
their jobs, we would have better candidates all the way around.
Well, I mean
Well, no, that's not true. The people who count the elections are volunteers.
yeah.
They're not
In
in the
Warren
cycle.
County, they are definitely involved.
Okay.
Small towns, man, it is crooked as shit.
Sure.
It's rough right now. And Tennessee's just getting rougher, honestly. So if you would go to my Etsy, see if you like anything. If you have any
There it
suggestions,
is.
something that you think would be cool, like let me know. I'll fuck around with it.
QR code. Yeah, check it out. And yeah, definitely reach out
Yeah.
to AJ. And if you have an idea about merch that should be sold, or you have an idea about what would go good on a shirt or a bag or stickers or buttons, you got all kinds of stuff on the store.
Yeah.
I do. And I'm
How
all
about
about some tote bags because that's like Colorado, you don't get plastic bags. So
how about for all the people who have been taking pictures of QR codes and don't understand why they don't work? Is there a URL?
I just like if you go to Etsy and it's Blue Dog Designs, you can just find me by looking that up.
All right, I'm going to make a
if
tiny
you have
URL
an
right
Etsy.
now.
Okay. You make
Actually,
it happen.
I will put that
I love
address in
my
for
wonderful friends.
this whole thing. I'll put this in the
Yay!
chat.
Look at these guys. Aren't they great? Everybody likes
See, there we go. That's the shop.
my wonderful
So go check
people.
out
There you go.
Blue Dog Design for all your greatest and latest uh, in political deep dive gear and
Yes.
election gear coming up for this election. Have all the gear
Yes.
because it's going to be an interesting time.
It is an
Speaking
interesting.
Speaking of the election at interesting times, I went to see the movie Civil War this week.
That is
Um,
not, to clarify for people, with Captain America
no,
and the Winter
no, it's not.
Soldier.
It's not a Marvel Cinematic Universe
Oh
or the
gosh, that
Okay,
movie
DCU.
was good.
that was a good
Yeah,
movie.
no. This is A24 is the studio. If you've seen Ex Machina,
I did see that.
28 Days Later,
Yeah,
I believe
that
he
was good
was the
too.
writer on that one, the guy that produced it or directed it this time. But this movie is set in a quote unquote fictional, not too distant future of the United States where an active civil war is going on. There's a president played by Nick Offerman of Parks and Rec, Ron Swanson fame, which led me to say, you elect a libertarian president and all things go to shit. So, but Nick Offerman is serving in his third term as president. Um, really, the only political things in this movie is that he's disbanded the FBI, and then it talks about the players. There's a Florida alliance that you really don't hear a whole lot about during the movie. That they really don't develop that, but are the Western forces led by Texas and California. As us, as people who live in the political realm, that doesn't
Right.
make sense. But um, this movie really doesn't go into politics at all. It is about the horrors of civil war. What happens when you have a civil war? And it follows a group of four journalists going from New York City down to Washington D.C. as the Western forces advance on the capital, and just the horrors of civil war. Um, I think to a point, when you get to the point of a civil war, it's no longer about politics. So all the petty arguments you have about abortion and LGBTQ rights and banning books, all that stuff really doesn't matter in a civil war. A civil war is all about power. How do you
Yeah.
consolidate power in your hands? And what are you willing to do to consolidate that power in your hands? How far are you willing to go? Um, and you saw in this movie things in this movie are very disturbing, but these are things that have happened all over the world.
I was going to
Um,
ask you. Let's think of what are your top three civil wars?
like
Right. I mean,
bad civil
Americans.
wars.
Well, just what are the three civil wars you know the most about? Probably American is number
Um,
one.
American Civil War is probably I know the most about. Civil War in Sudan uh, and the Civil War in Somalia. Those three that I know probably the most about. I've done research on Somaliland and what's happened since the civil war with Siad Barre and all that stuff in Somalia, and then understanding. There's a wonderful book out there. Uh, it's a tough read. It's called Me Against My Brother, and it features the three civil wars in Africa,
Right.
the three big ones. So Rwanda, Somalia, and Sudan,
Right.
and just the awfulness,
Right. A real genocide.
depravity.
Yeah.
Other civil wars that I know a ton about, the one in Liberia, there was some brutal shit that happened there.
Yeah. For me,
We
the
know
ones I
that,
know the most about are American, English, and Chinese. And obviously, the Chinese is the most recent.
yeah.
American next, and the English is so long ago it's insane. But
And of course, we can say I mean, two that we've been very much involved with, and they're more country versus country, but North and South Vietnam and North and South Korea.
yeah,
I
and
mean, they're
what's what's true about all of those universally is that in all three of those cases, those are the highest casualty counts of any war those countries have had. And if you consider the fact that for the English, right, this is, when's Cromwell, 16 something? That's crazy, because the British lost so many men in World War I that, women went single. There weren't enough young men around for people to get married and stuff like that. I mean, there was a notable absence of men on the street. Civil wars are brutal. However, now the interesting thing about it is that, in all cases, at least in those three cases, the American Civil War, we sort of talk about the fact and say, well, it was about slavery, which I think it was about slavery. And, Nikki Haley accepting.
A lot of Republican candidates have a problem with that concept. I don't understand.
It's the same reason they don't like the 1619 Project. They don't like to admit that the North won the Civil War. But guys, the North did win the Civil War. The South
fake
lost.
News.
In fact, we just celebrated Confederation Surrender Day again recently.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, did you know that NASCAR still flies the Confederate flags?
Not officially, right?
Well, the last lap of the race, they unfurl the last flag of the Confederacy.
Is that
the
true?
White flag.
Stars and bars?
Yeah. No, the white flag.
Oh,
the last
surrender.
lap of the race.
That's hilarious. That is so
I was
funny.
You're right,
I'm like,
buddy.
man, I fell for that hook, line, and sinker too. That's awesome. I think that, Dave, you need to when you do the editing, cut that out as a clip and use it as a promotional video, because it's really good.
I'm sure we'll make
just me going.
We'll get a lot of people angry reacting, especially because on Twix.
You are going to get so much shit for all the stuff that I said earlier. Yeah, I mean, I don't care either, because I said it. But you have yet to experience what it's like to be, considered.
Dude, I was on the LNC. I've experienced shit.
No, that's true. That's true. Fair enough. We did post the tiny URL link in the comments as well. tinyurl.com/LouDogDesign.
Yes.
Easy to remember. Tell your friends.
Yeah, lots of views. I would like lots of views. That'd be fun. I had a sale yesterday. I was really happy about it.
Nice.
Good
I still got to get the baseball shirt. I want the baseball shirt. That one's cool.
Yeah, it's comfy. I like it.
Nice. But yeah, to close the loop on Civil War the movie, go see it. And I tell people to go see it because you need to understand, because we got a lot of, I know a lot of people within the liberty movement that are proud of their gun ownership and have a lot of guns and maybe part of the Boogaloo thing or whatever. Probably got kicked off of several platforms for saying that. You don't want, once that comes out, once you let that genie out of the bottle, what the United States becomes is not good. We've seen throughout the world places get torn apart by civil war, and you can't put them back together again. We've already survived one. I don't think the United States survives the second one. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing that the United States breaks up or whatever, if you think the government's bad now, wait till you live under a warlord.
Well, it's a fascinating question, because Lincoln famously said, "If I could preserve the Union and not end slavery, I would."
That question, Jesus Christ, that whole scene.
Yeah, and so the question becomes: is it easier to endure the states going their own way, or a civil war? And the thing is that our capacity to do, let's see, how do I say this without getting us banned on every platform in existence?
It's a tightrope, man.
It is. Our
Is there
capacity,
an emoji for that?
our capacity to do terrible things at a very minimal level, at a very individualistic level, is unmatched at any time in history.
Sure.
What one dedicated person can do, and it doesn't have to involve a firearm. It could involve chemistry or sabotage, things like that. There are a lot of things that one person can do that could be incredibly destructive to our society. And one of the things that I think benefits us all is to spend some time thinking about that in terms of how much we live at the suffrage of each other. There's a saying that's famous among libertarians: fuck around and find out. It's not a bad thing to think about.
Yeah.
People should consider what's happening. In fact, a lot of what's happening in this country right now, in my opinion, is because a lot of people said, you know what? I don't want to fuck around and find out. So I'm going to use the power of government to fuck around and find out and have government do all the shit that I wish I could do, but I really don't want to take the consequences for. Like make other people pay for my college or make other people pay for my health care. That kind of stuff.
Or people make other people make decisions for my health care.
Yeah.
Or their health care.
Allow other people to, but you know, James, finger on the button. I'm not worried yet that somebody is going to launch a nuclear missile and destroy, let's just say, Phoenix, because they don't have a hockey team anymore because of the bad decisions of whatever. I spent a lot of time thinking about the damage that people could do to a reservoir, or there's a lot of other
power supply. I mean,
power supply, things of infrastructure. Right? Exactly. The power grid is unbelievably susceptible to damage. I mean, you think about, how stressed things seemed during COVID, or let's talk about Dave. I think we talked about this before. You lived in the DC area during the Lee Harvey Malvo things, right?
No. I was not yet. That happened before I moved to DC.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people who lived in DC. I actually met a cop that was part of the manhunt.
Right.
But
DC traffic was essentially shut down. I mean, now it wouldn't matter because everybody's working from home. But, still
awful traffic.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it was, just really. I mean, it was two people at that point in time. But
absolutely. I mean, the electric infrastructure. Just think about everything that happens with the people talk about a electromagnetic pulse weapon that would take fry out the grid. In the background, we have a big sun. A big sun can fry out an electric grid, and with a well-directed solar flare, a large enough solar flare can do that.
Right.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Could you imagine living 6 days without your cell phone? Like, people don't understand it. Like, all the things that you need are just based off of electricity. If you don't have battery cranked radios and solar power stuff, you're SOL.
We had the closest thing I can remember this in recent memory. I mean, obviously Texas had their big freeze, but it didn't last that long. New Hampshire, within the last 10 years, had an enormous ice storm. And it took down, Sean will remember this New Hampshire ice storm as well. And he's 100% right. The donut stayed open because all the law enforcement were around.
Of course.
Friend of the show, Justin O'Donnell, or at least my friend. I don't know if he's a friend of the show or not. I know he irritated a lot of people in libertarian circles. But Justin O'Donnell was in the National Guard and stationed in Boston, helping to maintain law and order. And in fact, it was that moment that activated him as a libertarian when he was a soldier being ordered to keep U.S. citizens off the street. But they kept the Dunkin' Donuts open, so all the cops and everybody else could go in and get coffee and Dunkin' Donuts. Circle around to what I was saying right before that, though.
The New Hampshire ice
Oh, yeah.
storm.
So New Hampshire had this huge ice storm. And when ice storms happen, what happens is everything gets wet first, and then it freezes, and then it gets super heavy. And so all the power lines snapped, the poles snapped, trees came down across the thing. Anyway, to make a long story short, there were some people in, living within 100 miles of Boston, Massachusetts, who were without power for 12 days. That is a long time to be without electricity.
In an ice storm.
Yep.
Aftermaths of an ice storm. Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
the Texas one, you had people dying because they were, and that was like 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. That was
You know,
nothing.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy to think, and I'm trying not to be like the crazy prepper guy, but you need to have preparations just in case things happen, just for basic things like electricity and communications. It's just simple
Right.
communications, having the ability to charge a phone, or you have like a walkie-talkie set or something along those lines that in case
Charge
you
your phone. Have power to support the electronics that you actually need. There are people
Yeah.
who depend on dialysis machines.
yeah
Okay. If you depend on your dialysis machine to live, man, or an oxygen machine
oh
or
my God,
something like
yeah.
that, you got to have a backup.
Yep.
And at this point, this is the point in time in which I point out that Lou Dog Design also sells custom generators. If you buy the propane generator, well, here's the thing: you probably could resell the ones off of Amazon. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And people who don't know, I talk about this all the time. Get a propane generator because you can get a tank of propane at Walmart, at the gas station, wherever. And on a small generator, a big 30-gallon tank will last you at least 48 hours with good power supply, enough to take care of your house. So everybody should have that much capacity, maybe more.
And as always, have a plan. Have a plan
Yep.
and be ready to execute it at a moment's notice, because there are tipping points when we come. Like this year is going to be filled with tipping points. Tomorrow we start the first trial of Donald Trump, the first criminal trial of Donald Trump for the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, and that if let's say he gets convicted.
I'm down with that ramen thing.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. Ramen is excellent, but you also have to have clean water supply. Just to make sure you can eat ramen raw, so you can raw dog it.
You can definitely raw dog ramen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the let's say Donald Trump gets convicted, there's going to be people in the streets about that.
Yes.
The election's going to happen. Biden loses, Trump loses. There's going to be people in the streets about that. There are tipping points that could happen between now and heck, I won't say the date, but when Congress meets to count the electoral votes in 2025,
yeah,
could have something happen. I mean, I doubt. I think that's probably going to be a very locked down day that day.
Yeah. I expect Russia to go apeshit then.
Yeah,
like do all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah, it's good to have a plan, to understand that there are bad actors out there that will try and take advantage of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff going on this year.
I like that you've changed the background to solar flares for this thing.
Because I mean, even that can happen. Well, I think we're in a solar maximum right now.
Well,
and that
people who aren't aware, look up Carrington event, 18 whatever. There was a solar flare and it burned out every wire in the United States.
And that was when we didn't really
we didn't have
rely on
a
lot of wires. Yeah.
Now, the argument is that we probably are insulating them better. I'd be interested in we have
but the satellites will get, I don't know if the satellites will make it if an event
the satellites are already getting incredibly heavy radiation because they're not protected by the
by the atmosphere. Yeah.
right. I would be interested in what Dr. Moulton thinks about that, but
Yeah.
I know he's not a doctor of that type. He's just a smart guy. All right, should we quiz it?
I think we should quiz it.
Yeah. Hey, James, we did the same thing. There's a really wonderful thing out there where they show Google search for eye pain, and it's exactly the path of the eclipse.
Except for West Virginia. West Virginia had and we didn't have totality in West Virginia. We had like some of the highest in the U.S. because West Virginia was not quite the totality. So if you looked at it directly,
right, it was actually worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got close. I was at like 91%, and I was in the far eastern part of the state. So anybody who's closer to the Kanawha Valley, then they probably had more of a darkening. But yeah, West Virginia was like the highest search thing, and I think it was because let me put us. There we go. Actually, no. Let me put us on the side so we can see the questions. All right, context clues. We've got Powerball. Would you like to see my Powerballs? People lobbying, guns,
Well,
and freshly
weird.
squeezed OJ.
Did you watch the David Hogg Spike Cohen debate?
I did not.
I did not either.
All right, question number one.
To?
What's that?
I said, were we supposed to?
No.
It was not a
Thank
legal
God.
requirement. All right, question number one. Which global leader was invited to the White House this week for a lavish state visit? Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, or UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak? I got through all those names.
I'll tell you what.
I know who it is.
I don't know this, but I know it's not. I'm pretty sure. So.
Oh, you lost you there for a second.
Oh, really? It was Modi?
You were like,
no. It's not Modi. It's Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida.
I would have guessed that from the red dot, which I'm guessing is the rising sun flag.
I would assume so too. Hold on a second. An Israeli dude, probably. No, it was not an Israeli dude. They were busy.
Yep.
Cherry blossom season, Japanese. Very good putting that together. Yes, Fumio Kishida was in the United States to discuss bilateral relations. Yeah. Question number two.
Japan's in an interesting place, right?
Yeah.
Over the aging population.
Yes.
Enormous debt to GDP ratio.
But their economy is getting better.
Yeah.
It's coming out of the 3-decade-long sink.
3-decade-long sink, which is coming after, an incredible 3 decades of growth.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with Japan is they got so used to import substitute industrialization that their industries got so comfy with the idea that keeping American products or foreign products out of their markets to benefit them led to them becoming complacent with their
if there's anybody who you think would learn about the American failure in becoming complacent, you would think it would have been the Japanese because they took advantage of it. But
yeah. All right. So we're starting to get a little bit out of the ISI, but they're still. I mean, it's kind of like France when you try and do anything with the farmers. Then they all start bringing their tractors to Paris and locking it down. There's a lot of that going on. So, all right, what type of weather impacted millions across the southern U.S. this week? Blizzards. I wish. Hurricanes, heat waves, or severe storms.
Stormy weather.
It's Stormy Monday. Yes, powerful storm system to cause flooding and spawn tornadoes through the South and the Mississippi Valley. I don't know if this is the same one. We had a tornado in Charleston. Wasn't this past week, but I don't know if it was early enough or late enough last week that it didn't get covered in the last quiz. Janice got that, and James got it because he's kind of down there in that region of the state that gets those things. All right, question number 3. Which car company has come under intense scrutiny for its autopilot technology? Audi, Ford, Tesla, or Volvo?
Nicola.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a Ricola joke.
Yep.
Nicola. It's Tesla. We know.
It is
Tesla.
Tesla's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really the only one. I mean, there are other companies trying to do it, but Tesla's really kind of in the forefront of it.
Oh,
Yeah. Autopilot system faced widespread criticism from prominent safety groups. This week, the embattled company settled a major lawsuit filed by a family of a former Apple engineer who died after his Tesla Model X crashed while the autopilot feature was engaged. I remember back in the day, somebody set their cruise control and thought it was autopilot. It was on a Winnebago, and it just all of a sudden they're bouncing through a field in Iowa.
So, initially enough, my Tacoma has both lane assist and distance cruise control. So, like, I can set my speedometer to 70 miles an hour, and it won't get closer than X distance to a car in front of me, but it'll drive up to 70 miles an hour at that point in time. So, I have thought, not that I drive drunk, but nights when I thought I was close to drunk, I'm like, probably the smartest thing for me to do is to get on 495 and just let the car stay in the same lane until I feel like I'm really sober and ready to drive on.
God.
I haven't done that because I, of course, don't drive drunk, but I've thought about it.
I mean, we're getting to the point where, I mean, notwithstanding what's going on with Tesla, things like this, I mean, you might have to start adjusting laws. Like, if you were a single passenger in a self-driving vehicle and you are drunk,
Yeah.
is that drunk driving?
No.
Well, I mean,
here's the thing,
ostensibly, you have to be able to take back over control of the vehicle if something happens.
Well, no, because here's where we're going with this. There's liars, there's damned liars, and there's statisticians. And I guarantee you that the number of fatal accidents that happen while a car is in autopilot is significantly less of a percentage than the number of fatal accidents that happen while there's a human driving. Yeah. So what I'm worried about is the day that the laws come around and they say statistically, it's much safer to let the computer drive than to have a human drive. And so you actually will get fined and be in trouble for steering yourself and have an added liability in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean we're probably
you're
not
full of so much good news tonight. It's just amazing.
Well,
like,
I mean,
I broke my worry stone this week, and y'all are talking about all of these things coming.
But if I could tell you, I mean, where it's going, right? And I'm 100% sure of this, and you're going to see it pretty soon in Denver, is that people aren't going to own cars anymore.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying you would enjoy that, right?
I'm so looking forward to not having to drive everywhere.
Yeah.
I've lived in Tennessee. I have to drive everywhere.
Well, you're going to have to drive a lot of places in Denver too. But eventually, Denver's going to be one of the first cities to implement it. They're just going to be Boston. Boston's already there. Okay. Boston's already said it's going to happen by 2040. They're getting rid of all public parking in the city. So private parking is going to go up to it's already private parking in Boston when I left was $60 a day. I assume it's going to go up, well over $100. But what they're going to have is, you park outside the city and there's a bunch of, just remote cars that you get in and you tell them where you want to go and it takes you wherever you want to go. And that's it. And
have you ever seen slugging here in DC, Dan?
Slugging?
Yeah.
No, I don't know what that is.
So slugging is an interesting form of commuting. DC's got the pay-to-play lanes and
yep.
the high
I like those.
HOV lanes and things like that. So to get into the HOV lanes,
Right. You got to have three people.
yeah, you got to have three people. So people will gather at certain spots throughout, the exurbs of
Yep.
DC, and someone will pick them up, like complete strangers will pick them up just to get through the HOV lanes into DC. There are so many rules about how you can travel into DC, what you can say to people, like no talking. Do not touch the radio. Do not touch the air conditioning. Do not. It's just eyes forward. We're going to work now. Eventually,
That's
you're going to get like a
crazy
group
shit.
of people that you're. Yeah, it is really weird shit. I would never do.
First of
slugging.
all,
I just don't.
right. First of all, I mean, just pay for it if you really want it. But the other thing about it is, and I've done this several times, you can put a sex doll in some clothes in the front seat, and nobody.
Yeah, but that look of horror on their face as you're driving down the road.
No, they do it. Right. Oh my God. I don't know if I can tell this joke, but when I ask her, am I driving too fast? And her face is, I can't resist that. Oh, you're going to get us banned, Dave.
Yeah, we are going to get banned.
But
thanks for watching the last episode of the Political Deep Dive, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate it.
All right.
Question number 4.
For those of you who had the over-under of when sex dolls would be mentioned, it was 11:26.
All right. Question number 4.
OJ.
Yeah. O.J. Simpson, one of the most controversial figures of the 20th century, died of cancer this week. His 1995 trial captivated national attention and eclipsed the athletic achievements in which sport? Wow. Basketball, football, boxing, or baseball? Oh, AJ.
It's football. I had to explain to Colin who O.J. Simpson was the other day.
Man.
I would tell you, as somebody who is old enough to have watched O.J. play, he was unbelievable. He was so good.
He could slash through the
I was in 7th grade when his trial.
Oh, the Bronco?
We were watching it. But we had 4 desks pushed together. We were all watching the O.J. Simpson
I remember watching it, and the coverage I was watching was on NBC. It was the playoffs, basketball playoffs, and Bob Costas, who was friends with OJ, was on the air at the time. And so like him sort of talking about it, and eventually he left. And people have different opinions about sports people, but Costas is in my top 5. Just as a thoughtful, considerate person who really loves sport. It was interesting to see him sort of, shaken up by it. But where it really became crazy was, I think that was the beginning of, sort of, or at least for me, it was my first beginning of a really understanding of a split reality, because 75% of African Americans at the time believed that OJ was innocent. And that was because of their experience with the police. Being completely bullshit, insensitive, illegal framing, etc., towards black people. Now we're in a situation where nobody believes anything anymore. That was the first time I thought that, we have a real break here of people believing different things presented with the same facts based on their personal experiences.
And it gave rise to over sensationalized courtroom dramas. It gave us Greta Van Susteren as a TV host. It gave us Judge Napolitano as a TV
Marsha
host.
Clark. Well, not only that, I think I can get a bonus point on this question by saying that the person over OJ's left shoulder is Christopher Darden.
Yes,
I could be wrong. Yeah, all right. Bonus point.
I believe so.
We'll add it on at the end.
Yeah.
We might get 11 this week.
Turn it up to 11, baby.
Yep.
All right. Question number 5. Which prestigious tournament kicked off this week and just finished this afternoon? The Masters, Wimbledon, Rugby World Cup, or Little League World Series? It's a tournament unlike any other.
Well, it's not Wimbledon because that's in July.
No.
It's still too rainy in England. It's not the Little League.
Too early for that one. Yep.
And I don't think it's funny. I turned on the TV and I saw golf. And so that makes me think that it's probably the Masters. But Sean says it's the Masters too.
It is the Masters.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Augusta, Georgia.
The Rugby World Cup was just a little like 2 months ago, like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it just happened. So
yeah.
And I would have rather watched the Rugby World Cup.
Rugby World Cup was excellent. I watched it. England lost in a heartbreaker.
Yeah. So the Masters, 88th edition, was it Scotty Scheffler who won the tournament this year? World number one player, ran away with it towards the end and gets a green jacket for his troubles. Green jackets go with everything. Just remember that. Question number 2.
Wait, here's a trivia question for an extra point. When did Augusta allow women members?
They still haven't, have they?
No, they have. I will tell you.
It's not long ago.
Condoleezza Rice was the first female member.
That's right.
The answer is,
actually, they've been talking about having a women's event, which they shut the country club shut down. But
it was going to be a baking. It wasn't golf. I'm just kidding.
Jesus Christ, we're gonna die now.
2012 was when Augusta National admitted their first female.
Finally open to women.
Wow, bless their hearts.
Yeah. It was dumb. I mean, like I get back in the day, the segregation of all that stuff, but they held on to it way too long. Like you gotta read the room. Things were changing.
No, I will circle around it a little bit. So there was a fitness club in Massachusetts called Curves or something like that.
Yeah.
It was only women. And it was meant to be a private club and had a gym, but had a bar, social events, stuff like that. But it was only for women. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay. I get that rationale. The golf club is a little bit different because it's not just a golf club.
Yeah.
It features a national tournament at its home. Okay. The idea of, single sex spaces, I don't necessarily get it. But I have friends who went to all girls schools.
I do too.
And, they said that was easier for me because, I didn't have to be afraid to raise my hand.
They're going out of like my friend went to Converse College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, all girls school. They had a couple of men in the graduate programs, but all girls school. And I want to say probably in the last 10 years, they've gone to co-ed, and because it's just financially not viable to, like, you would hope that there'd be a space that would accommodate, but it's just not financially viable to only cater to.
When I was graduating high school in 1985, 1986, the fall of 1985 was the first year that Bennington was going co-ed. Bennington, famous as just ridiculously expensive liberal arts college in Vermont. And I was like, man, if I am in the first class of men there, that is going to be awesome. I'm going to have a great freshman year. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, Texas gave me a full ride, and so I went there instead. But I've often thought about it. But yeah, you're right. Single sex education doesn't seem to make sense anymore. Single sex
I think
clubs.
you're gonna have your outliers like Wellesley and places like that that'll still
Yeah, because
they've got enough of endowment to survive. But some of the smaller schools, like there's one in Atlanta, Agnes Scott. There's one that has had problems here just down the road in Virginia that has been threatening to close. I don't even know if it may have already closed, but it's hard to shut off yourself to a whole segment of the population.
I think what's interesting about it is, this ties back to another conversation that we were having before about the fact that, so some of you might notice my hair and beard look fantastic today. And the reason why is because I showered right before we got on the air. And the reason why I did that is because I hadn't showered in a week. If you have single sex clubs that are all men, that's essentially the Taliban. You get long beards, unbathed people, terrible shit. The thing about it is that I'm not speaking for all men, I'm only speaking for myself, we're fundamentally disgusting. I think of some of the stuff that I've eaten from dubious locations.
Guilty here.
Well, and then there's another one that I believe that there is a genetic thing for men to say, if you see a hole, what part of my body can I fit into that hole? Can I fit my head in that hole? Can I fit my arm in that hole? Et cetera, et cetera. We get into a lot of trouble that way. So all men clubs are not a good idea. And I get the idea of, I had a friend who had an Etsy store long time ago, back when Etsy was kicked off. The piece that she had that was the best was a little piece of needlework that said, if they can send one man to the moon, why not all of them? I thought it was pretty funny.
Because it would stink, even in zero gravity.
Right, exactly. We would make it stink. All right, that's my bit on single sex gatherings.
All right. Question number 6. Which political figure joined TikTok this week but promised not to dance? We actually got an answer already from the audience. The choices are Chinese President Xi Jinping, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, or French President Emmanuel Macron.
Can't be Xi Jinping because I saw the little Winnie the Pooh honey dance that was Xi Jinping on TikTok. Although, also, I mean, TikTok's run by the Chinese, so
you would think it comes with free with the presidency.
Exactly.
That's like a perk of the presidency.
Right.
Free TikTok account.
It wouldn't be Zelensky. Although I did see that photo that, I think you're right. I did see that picture that he sent out of him and his wife, sort of the cheesecake photo. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No.
But that's a good-looking couple.
Well, she's an absolute smoke show, and like he has worn nothing but muscle shirts the entire war. Like he's pretty ripped.
It is for a comedian.
For a comedian, yeah, like absolutely. He's just like swole. But yeah, I think it is German Chancellor Olaf Scholz joining TikTok. Created a TikTok account to connect with the younger audience. Vowed he would not dance on it. I don't dance, promise, he said in a statement, which is kind of going against Joe Biden just joined it not long ago, despite it being banned on federal government workers and being banned in many states.
Although, I mean, to be fair, what Olaf Scholz said was, I don't dance, promise. I have to do my Schwarzenegger impersonation there.
I mean, remember Dieter back in the day on Saturday Night Live doing his little dance. I dance. I think
you want to touch my monkey.
Would you like to touch my monkey? Liebe Mann, it's Mickey. All right, question number 7. Which airline announced it intends to furlough around 260 pilots this fall? United, American, Southwest, or Spirit?
Just based on the color, I'm going to guess Spirit Airlines, which chose their name because that's what you pay to fly. it saps your spirit. I don't want to call them out because I will say that my good friend Martha's husband is a pilot for Spirit Airlines, and he is a good dude. He was at Liberty Con when Dave refused to go, and he hung out with me instead. So that was a good
Nice.
idea.
Nice. So yeah, I'm assuming it's Spirit Airlines.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
You're not yellow if you fly that airline. Like that takes some courage.
Yep. Yep. Now that
All
being
right.
said, it's still up to American standards,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, I mean it's not like Aeroflot
or Ukraine or Indonesian Air.
or Indonesian Air, yeah, Malaysian Airlines, yeah. I mean those still haven't found those planes. All right, question number 8. Which state Senate passed a controversial bill that will allow teachers to? I told you it was Tennessee.
I
Uh-huh.
mean, I look at these
That's-
4 and I'm like, how come they didn't give me Massachusetts as an option?
No. Which state Senate passed a controversial bill that will allow teachers to carry concealed handguns in K through 12 schools? Yeah, told you.
Is
AJ,
it
see
Tennessee?
this one?
Yeah, it's Tennessee.
It is Tennessee. See, you've sent me so much stuff about the Tennessee legislature. I was like, I recognize the background there. That's Tennessee, I think.
Uh-huh. I can't help it. It's every fucking day of session. They are doing some bullshit. Like every day. It's
I
just
don't think West
ridiculous.
Virginia passed their. It was up
I
for
think
up for
Texas
debate.
did.
This
I
is
don't remember if see. I mean, whenever West Virginia's legislature, it is kind of a all no holds barred. Um,
Well, as it turns out,
60 days of
in
fear
34 states it's legal.
for teachers to carry concealed
Yes.
carry.
There's
Okay.
only 16 states where it's illegal. Alabama, California, Illinois, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, Nebraska, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia.
That's where it's illegal or legal.
That is where it is prohibited by law.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that you do have to have a specific law prohibiting it.
Yes. Um, I mean, we talked about this last week. There are good things and bad things about allowing it.
Listen,
I would
there's so
rather
many
have
cases of teachers physically abusing the kids. I would much rather we just have a much better screening program for, fuck body cameras for teachers. I'm in favor of that. I mean,
I mean, we've had issues here in West Virginia where, especially with special ed, we had a kid being verbally abused by their teacher. They were nonverbal autistic, verbally abused by their teacher. That the parents started suspecting things and put like a recording device in their hair and caught it and turned into a whole firestorm of controversy about the special education programs here in West Virginia, especially in our area. And but yeah, I mean, there's good and bad. The thing is training, making sure that they're well trained to be able to handle situations that they are. Um, I don't want a teacher having like 35 guns sitting in the back of the classroom in their office or something like that. That's probably not the way to go. But to have the ability to respond if there's something like that, because we've seen where like Uvalde, Parkland,
yep.
where the people that were supposed to go in and protect and serve either sat in the hallway while shit was going down or ran. And I don't. I think that there's going to be the first time you see a teacher pistol whip a kid who's getting out of line, or shoot a kid because they like. Last week I was talking about how my brother drove a teacher to a break, a mental
Yeah.
break. Actually threw a chair at him in the classroom, and had to go away for a while. And so, what if he'd had a gun at that point? Like, what? How far would he have been driven?
I will
There's no
say,
clean
as a
op.
Tennessean, we don't have a week that goes by that we don't have a teacher reported and on the front page on the local news check. We don't have a week where we don't have a teacher reported for some type of abuse.
Yeah,
Both of my boys were terrified of it because just in Warren
sure.
County, I mean, okay, what, the last 6 years, I guess, just at the high school, there's been
Yep.
5 teachers that have been, there's some iffy situations, and they got to resign quietly because it's a small town and that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and that's the interesting thing about it is that there's so many instances of teachers doing bad things
mm,
that another case in point, it isn't just whether or not they can carry, but are they going to have their weapon on them at all times? For people who do either conceal carry or open carry, we talk about the importance of your holster because you don't want somebody to grab your gun.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
if you were carrying a gun I know that Dave will occasionally carry a gun in his purse.
You
Uh,
know,
you put the purse down,
it's a fanny pack, man. It's a fanny
fanny
pack.
pack, fanny pack, but you put it down, the gun is no longer secure. And that's an interesting question too.
The
What it comes down to is what sort of people are we making teachers? And
Sure.
that's a fascinating thing because teacher absenteeism and teachers quitting is at a
Oh
higher
yeah.
level than it ever has been beforehand. A
Well,
lot of
yeah.
that.
I
Go
would
ahead.
say that there's not a teacher shortage in the United States. There is an abundance of teachers who have left the profession because of
Yep.
what we have made
because
them,
why
whether it
shouldn't
is
they?
driving
Yeah.
them crazy because of the parents screaming at them for, whether it's the woke agenda, or banning books, or the copious amounts of crap they have to go through with the government just to be able to teach their damn class.
Yep.
And
And let's be fair that there are many states in which salaries are low.
oh
Not all
yeah, West
states.
Virginia, absolutely.
Tennessee's one of them.
Right.
Yeah, West
Yeah,
Virginia is too.
From my understanding, they will be concealed, and no one will know which teachers have guns and which teachers don't.
that's
That
a
is that is that was the plan. Now it's a small town. We're going to know because
right.
the teachers here that want to carry a gun are all about this
Me too.
Yep.
because they're the ones that are all, well, I'll take care of it. No, those are not the people that you want to have guns.
No,
Or at
I
least
mean,
I don't want those people to have guns around my kid.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I would rather
And that's
have
my whole point.
some psych evals on those who are going to do it. Like I would rather have them
Parents have
evaluated to make sure they're there.
completely lost control in Tennessee.
I'm gonna put in
100%.
two things. First of all, I got to say, James, I had I'm older than you. When I was in school, teachers had paddles, and in fact, parents would send their kids to school with paddles, saying, "If my kid acts up, please use this paddle on them."
Use this one, yeah.
Um, but
I
then,
I had
go
it in
ahead.
North Carolina public schools too. Um,
We still
and
have
he
them in
said in
Tennessee.
West Virginia they didn't have issues with guns in schools, or didn't have issues in schools. I remember Moriarty, New Mexico, that you would go out to the parking lot of the high school, and there are trucks with guns in the back, in the back window, in the gun rack.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd have some shotguns.
Famously featured in Wayne's World when
Yeah,
Stacy gets Wayne a gun rack for his birthday. And
yeah,
as he says, I don't even own a gun. let alone enough to need a rack
Rack.
that I would put in the back of my car.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't
Tennessee is
know.
crazy. This is why I am leaving. It
Yeah,
is
exactly.
crazy.
Oh, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, there is a GoFundMe.
There
Help
is
get
fun.
AJ out of Tennessee. All right,
Please help me get out to the state.
All right. This
question number
question comes
9.
with a bonus question, a bonus point.
Oh
I know
no.
it.
Well, yeah,
For the
I know
bonus,
this one too. We actually just went through one a couple of years ago, and it is amazing
well,
how loud it is. But which
what
type of bug is will emerge in record numbers across the U.S. this spring? Moths, bees, cicadas, or spiders? John Cicada.
it is cicada.
Cicadas.
But here's the bonus
Sorry.
question: which two broods are emerging? Don't. Oh, sorry, it's not going to say. The reason it's so many is because it's two broods are emerging. And what's really
Oh,
interesting about it is that it's two prime numbers. And so these
I know
two
one's
particular
13.
broods will not emerge again. Thank God it's not spiders. Is right, Sean. I know a lot of people would be very unhappy if
Oh,
because it's going to be
it's happening in Bali. Like somebody showed this video of Bali, and
yeah,
there are spiders everywhere. Like they're
interesting.
raining down, and I'm like, just nuke it from orbit at this point. Like that, Bali is lost to us all now. It is the
I
Well,
spider's
see
den.
you.
I will tell you, you're right. It's 13, and then the next prime number after 13,
What 17?
17. So it's a 13
Oh,
and the 17-year brood. So now, Dave, Mr. Smarty Arts, how many years will it be before the 13 and the 17 come out again?
isn't it a 17-year cycle?
Well, no, the 17-year out will come out again in 17. How many years will it be till both the 13 and the 17 come out again in the same
At the
year?
same time? Oh
Yes.
God, I don't know. It's hundreds of years, I'm sure.
Well, it's 13 times 17. So
Well, again,
we'll leave that. We'll leave that answer for the
don't
audience
math
to figure
me.
it out. Oh, look, see, it says this mass emergence won't happen again until
Oh,
2245.
2245.
245.
There you go.
2245. So 221 years.
Which 7 times 3 is 21. So you knew it was going to end in a 1.
There you go.
Oh my God.
All right. Question number 10. Sadness. We talked about the Powerball last week, but a lone lottery ticket recently won the $1.3 billion Powerball jackpot. Where was the ticket sold? Idaho, Pennsylvania, Oregon, or Washington?
I have no idea.
It was Oregon.
I'm sad that I didn't win.
Oh,
I'm sad that I didn't win either. I was
I'm
ready to.
also sad that y'all didn't win.
Yeah, I mean, you would definitely have gotten to Colorado fairly easily if
Yeah.
either one of us
Oh,
had
you're
won.
so
So,
sweet.
You could have bought the Broadmoor.
Oh, shit.
but yeah, Oregon won. The guy in Oregon won the Powerball, $1.3 billion, which I think after taxes amounts to about $17.35. So, congrats to him. Don't spend it all in one place.
Yep.
Although with inflation, probably gonna have to spend it all in one place.
All right. Well, we went
10 for
long.
10,
10 for
2
10
weeks in a row.
plus 2 bonus points. So that's
Let's do
actually
bonus
12.
points.
That's our highest score ever.
Woohoo! Oh, that's the wrong one.
Make up our own rules.
Woohoo!
All right.
All right.
It's late.
So, speaking of hockey horns,
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about this a little bit.
yeah, just a
Oh,
brief
no.
note. The Arizona Coyotes. It's not official just yet, but apparently the players have been told that their services are no longer required in the great state of Arizona, and they will be moving to Salt Lake City for next season to play at the same arena that the Utah Jazz play in, even though there's no jazz in Utah.
No music at all.
Yeah, you can't dance. We saw the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the things that's never really played out as much as it has in other sports, people used to always talk about the Broncos having this advantage because of the altitude.
Yep.
and people who know that actually hockey is a much more of an endurance game, especially for the goalies in particular, but players in general. But it's never really borne itself out, except in terms of the really big hockey event from this week, which was DU winning the
The
college
national title.
championships. Yeah,
But it was in Minneapolis. I mean, yeah, you can make the. I mean, like
no, but
for
they're in
the
shape because
Olympics.
they live there. Like I will tell you that a year from now, uh, when AJ will have been living in Colorado for a year, her lung
Yeah.
capacity will be in the top 3%.
Yep.
It's true for everybody who
I
lives.
will say,
Running marathons.
my cousin and I are both asthmatic, and we went, and that was the best week we've had
Well, that's because it's so
ever.
dry there.
Yeah,
Dry
the
too. Yeah.
humidity here is so thick. It when we're in the thickest of it, like August, it it feels like you're drowning.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever vaped? It feels like that all the time.
When I went to high school in Colorado, uh, it takes a couple months for your lungs to adapt. But then when I would come back down to lower altitude, man, I could run because my pulmonary was in such great shape. It's why
I still couldn't run when I left New Mexico.
the American Olympic Center. Well, but New Mexico isn't that high.
No, Albuquerque is a mile high.
What?
Yeah, it is
That's
a mile
fake
high.
news. Fake news. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tramway on the east side of Albuquerque, just before you get to the Sandias.
Albuquerque altitude.
Probably it depends on where they measure.
You're right.
It in the city.
It is 5,300 feet.
Yeah.
How about
I
that
didn't
shit?
get to do it.
Although,
Not once.
that's interesting. 6,700 feet at in Sandia Heights.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you should have been in better shape.
No.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, have you had Mexican food?
that's a good point.
New Mexican food?
Dude, Santa Fe is at 7,000 feet.
Oh
I
yeah.
had no idea.
And with all the weed shops there, incredibly high.
Hi.
Yeah.
All
But
right. Well,
so
I just want to say I don't think that it's going to be a good move. I don't think that Utah has the crowd, even though it is a wintry area and there's some great skiing in the Salt Lake area. I'm one of the few people who has gone to Sundance to ski. But if you're in the know, it's the best time to go because during Sundance, all the hotel rooms are taken up by people who can't ski. So if you've got a place to stay, man, the slopes are wide open. Some of the best slopes. Park City is
beautiful.
Yeah, it's packed all the rest of the time of the year. All the slopes are full, except during the Sundance Film Festival. So it's a great time to go skiing there.
Just go to Park City. It's a beautiful town, even if you don't ski. Like I don't ski. My niece would never allow that. But yeah, I actually think it works.
Your niece, Kara's
because huh?
Oh, your knees.
My knees would not allow.
Gotcha.
My knees would not allow. No.
Gotcha.
But I think Salt Lake's going to work in the fact that it has only one professional sports team there.
Who unfortunately plays opposite.
Yeah,
are they going to play in the same arena?
Yeah, they're going to play in the same arena. Although the NHL has said that they have to make adjustments. But what this does do is now I believe the NHL is going to go through another round of expansion. We're going to get 4 more teams, and my prediction for the 4 cities that will get NHL teams are going to be Quebec City.
All right. The Nordiques have been gone a long time.
We'll bring back the Atlanta.
Thrashers.
There's been a I don't know if you're going to bring back as the Thrashers or have some other identity.
No, because our friend Chris is actually going to go down there and follow the entire team.
And then Houston as a rival to Dallas. Although if you wanted to kind of take a flyer, you could do Austin to have less competition, at least sports competition. Yeah. And then Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon, as the 4th city.
Yeah, I mean Houston's a no-brainer, right? It's the 4th largest city in the United States. It
transplants.
Yeah, it already has a great basketball arena. So, it's no
Okay,
harm, no problem putting those in. One of the interesting things about it, of course, is that hockey arenas are not all the same size
No.
in pro sports, which is
Well,
something that,
because
the
it's so
ice
very
surface now is
professional.
standardized. The ice
yes,
surface has been standardized. It used to be where you had places like the Odd or Boston Garden that had different size ice, but they've standardized. Yeah, I think all the old barns
is that true? I didn't know.
after Joe Louis closed, Maple Leaf Garden closed, Montreal's the Coliseum there is closed, Odd closed, all those great old barns
Right.
because they used to have it used to be kind of Wild
Pretty
West.
significantly different.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, now they're pretty standardized, but it's still smaller than the international ice. So,
Right. Interesting.
but yeah, I'm
I think,
looking
yeah,
forward to expansion again.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there is,
Atlanta's cursed for NHL teams, but they're cursed because they've had bad ownership both times. One, the first time was a real estate that during the 19 at the end of the 1970s with stagflation, he just went belly up and couldn't afford the team anymore. And you had investors in Calgary that were riding high in oil money. Then the Octo cluster that ran both the Thrashers and the Christ, what the hell's the Hawks
right.
that just wanted the Hawks. They got the Thrashers as an afterthought and didn't want to put any money into them. And Gary Bettman didn't put any effort into keeping him in Atlanta. So he was more focused on Arizona, and Arizona, as we're seeing right now, is failing. So, all right.
It's interesting. Is Arizona actually failing, or did they not get
Yes.
a stadium deal?
Well, it's both. Arizona has had. I mean, and I think part of it is that. Um, uh, but Arizona's had the issue with the arena. The Coyotes were suffering. There's always been rumors about the team moving, so I think that's kept the fan base down. Um, and then they weren't making enough money. They weren't able to pay the lease at the Glendale Arena that they've been the Gila River Arena there in Glendale. So they got kicked out of that, and they've been playing the last two seasons at Mullet Arena, great name for a
Yep.
hockey arena, at the University or Arizona State University.
Yeah.
But that arena is only 5,000. It can only hold 5,000 people. So
Interesting.
it wasn't a long-term solution for them at all.
I'll pose to you the question that we talked about on the other hockey show, which is, would one of the expansion teams possibly be a second team in one of the really big hockey markets? Chicago,
Toronto will never allow it.
Toronto. Toronto won't, although Toronto could easily support.
Toronto could, yeah, absolutely, but they don't want to.
I think
they charge the most out of any NHL team, and that city could hold probably three teams.
Yeah, right. It's the fourth largest city in North America.
Yeah, you're not going to.
And they're hockey crazy.
Yeah, you're not going to see like Montreal. It's not like there's a side of the city like with New York. You've got different parts of the city that you could put a team in.
Right.
I don't think Montreal is kind of like that. Vancouver, I mean, you've already got the team in Seattle, which is fairly close.
Yeah. Chicago,
LA's got,
I hear mentioned a lot. Chicago and maybe Boston.
They've talked about possibly moving the White Sox.
I mean, Chicago supports two baseball teams now.
Yeah, but they've talked about moving the Chicago White Sox out of the South.
It's because the Tribune,
they want a new ballpark. Yeah,
Tribune. Yeah, they're terrible owners. I mean, they bought when the newspaper owns the baseball team. It's not a good plan.
No.
It'll be interesting to see. I think that it's possible that a team they might give it a shot. Second hockey team in a big city. New York obviously would be the obvious answer, but the Islanders are so close.
No,
the Devils are so close.
You got Islanders, Devils there. There's been, I got into a discussion with Tony Drazio about Hartford coming back because he's a big Hartford
Whalers. I have a friend who's a diehard Whalers fan as well.
You're not going to get it because you got New York who's going to object. You also have Boston that's going to object to having a team that close. So Territory teams, the expansion teams now. Seattle had to pay $650 million to get an expansion team.
Which is crazy for a hockey team.
So the next round of expansion, and that was up from 500,000 for Vegas, or 500 million. I'm sorry, 500 million for Vegas, 650 million for Seattle. So your next round could be somewhere in the 800 million.
I think if they put a second team in a big city where they think it could succeed, I think $1 billion would be reasonable.
Yeah, I mean the Toronto Maple Leafs are easily valued well over $1 billion. They're one of the top two or three valued teams in sports, North America.
And since we're just going over time and we're really boring the audience at this point in time, let's talk about, is this the best chance in modern history for
the 32 teams in the NHL now?
32 teams in the NHL. And I think this year, 6 Canadian teams are going to be in the playoffs. I don't want to say it's the best chance because obviously Vancouver was in the final, losing to Boston.
Calgary was in the final, and then
But the Canadians have not won the Stanley Cup since Montreal in '93, I think.
Yeah, so we're over 30 years now.
Yeah, which I mean is delicious. But
oh no, every year I go, no Canada.
That's so funny. We went to Ellie and I went to Ellie. My wife is a huge Blackhawks fan, and so we went to the Stanley Cup in Chicago, Game 5 between.
Oh, there two Canadian teams will miss, so it's gonna be 5. Montreal and Calgary.
Who didn't make it?
Montreal and Calgary.
Oh, I thought somebody else can make it. How are your Sabres doing? Are they going to make it?
No, they got eliminated this week.
They were
13th
close.
Straight year of missing the playoffs. It's a teenager.
I am.
We lost AJ. AJ. She's pretty tired. She got to go to work tomorrow.
All right, yeah, we just keep talking hockey for a while now.
I know.
So, folks, our friends, good, James. We're going to keep going because for me, I'm fighting with my friend Monty right now about whether or not I want the Bruins to win the President's Cup. And
it's all about matchups. I mean, the Bruins ran away with it last year and won the President's Trophy, and it didn't bode well for them.
No, I don't want it to happen. I think the worst thing you can hear as a Bruins fan is you are number 1 seed going into the playoffs. That's just the thing is for us.
Florida underachieved all of last season. They were instituting a new system, and they finally got it going towards the end of the season. And we see how they're performing this season. They're a phenomenal team.
Yeah.
For Boston, I would much rather have a first round match. Well, I mean, the first round match will probably would be either with Florida or Toronto. Probably Toronto if you finish second. I mean that's any chance you get to play with Toronto in the first round, you should take it. I'll just say that. But your 8th seed team is probably going to be somebody like Washington or
Detroit.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Detroit, maybe. I don't think the Flyers have enough to get into the. I mean, they could theoretically.
I mean,
but
the battle at the bottom is pretty interesting, I have to say.
But I'd much rather play those teams. I'd much rather play those teams than a Florida or Toronto.
Right. Well, I mean, you figure.
And then you want those two teams to beat the hell out of each other, so that second round you get a weakened team facing you in that second round. So I mean, it's better to at least win the Atlantic, and not you don't have to win the President's Trophy, but
the thing is, if the Bruins win out, they can end up at, what are they at right now? They're at 109 points.
They got 2 more games.
Yeah, and the Rangers are at 112. So I mean, they still got a shot.
Well, yeah, they got the shot, but I would let the Rangers win. The President's Trophy. Let them.
Carolina's not out of it either, for that matter. Yeah. I don't think the Panthers can't catch the Rangers.
Yeah.
Oh, the Panthers are at 81 games too, so never mind.
Yeah, so they got 1 more game left.
Yeah.
Beat my Sabres on Saturday.
I will say, I've been watching a lot of Blackhawks recently. Blackhawks are playing good. They're going to be good next year.
It depends. I mean, they've got a lot of holes to fill in the roster. They've got a lot of young talent.
Well, figure they're going to get the number one pick again.
No, because I mean, if they win the lottery again,
Right.
I
They're
don't
the
know
number
because
two.
there's a rule now that if you
Oh,
win
is
a
there? You can't
lottery
get the
one
number one
year,
pick again?
yeah, if you win the lottery one year, I think you
Yeah.
have to wait 5 years before you can win the lottery again and move to the
Wow. I didn't
first
know
pick.
that.
You can, I think, you can move up to the second pick, but you can't move up to the first pick. So,
Interesting.
but
Well,
it may be both those picks. So,
they'll be the second seed, but they just had a stretch where I watched them beat Dallas, and Dallas is a pretty good team.
Dallas is stout.
Yeah, and you know they got out to an early 3-0 lead and held on to win 3-2. That was a great game. You didn't watch the
Yeah,
highlights of that game last
Dallas
week.
plays a heavy game.
Yeah,
So
it was a
that'd
good
be a
game
good
for
final.
Chicago to beat them, and that Chicago and Dallas was on an 8-game winning streak at that point too. And then in one of the smartest bets I've done, they were playing the Wild in the next game, and it was a 24-hour, so home game exactly the next day. I'm like,
So
that
home and
is the
home.
classic letdown game. And so I bet quite a bit on Minnesota, and Minnesota beat them 4-0.
Yeah.
Even though
And
Chicago,
for a young team, it's hard to have it up. Yeah, be ready for both games.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
so here's a fascinating stat.
I love that so many people have
Chicago,
stayed around.
huh?
I love that so many people have stayed around for us to talk hockey here.
Well, that's great, guys. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it because now we're going to talk about some remarkable stats. Chicago differential minus 108 on the year, only surpassed by the Sharks at 139, minus 139.
The Sharks have been awful, and
It's unbelievable how bad they've been.
it's sad because they've been so bad this year, and there's a really good chance you only get. I mean, if you finish dead last in the NHL, there's only an 18% chance that you get the
Get the
first
number one
overall
pick.
pick.
Yep, exactly.
So you could have suffered, and not only will you not pick first, you may not pick second.
Right.
You may get passed by two teams, and then you're
Well,
treading
and
water.
I hadn't thought about it, but actually, you can argue that LA has two teams with the Ducks and the Kings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
Ducks. Ducks and the Kings. That's a close enough rivalry. Like I mean, I even count the Devils within the New York
the
rivalry.
New York Triangle, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's close enough. And like I count Vancouver and Seattle close enough to
Yeah.
have almost like a two-team city.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like I think of like the teams that have two baseball teams, or two football teams.
Yep.
That sort of rivalry is really awesome in the sports.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Seattle and Vancouver. I'm looking forward to if Dallas or if Houston gets a team, Dallas and Houston fighting it out.
That's interesting though
Would love
because like
a playoff series.
the football rivalry isn't that big.
Well,
Dallas
because
Houston
they're in different conferences. Like they won't. So the great thing about hockey when you
right, so you
and
don't
they would
play
be in
each
the
other.
same they'd be in the same division. So there's if
Right.
both teams make the playoffs, there's a decent chance that they'll actually play each other.
Right.
And that's when you get rivalries built is when they face each other in the playoffs. That's where the hate. That's where you stew the hate. And
Right. Right, and
I'm looking forward to
even
it.
in well, it's interesting because I mean that was the thing that people were the most excited about in a lot of interleague play, which you and I are both old enough to remember when they started interleague play.
Yeah.
Is that people are like, oh, the Chicago series, the Subway series, the Bay series, all those games.
Yeah.
People were pretty excited about them.
Now it's cool. Like, I'm cool when the Yankees play the Mets, but like I got so tired in baseball of Boston versus the Yankees. Like
Yeah.
for a while they were playing like 18 to 20 times a season, and it's like, and it would always be the like Sunday night game of the week, and
Right.
it got so tiring it was like, okay, yeah, it's a great rivalry, but sometimes less is more when it comes to things like that. That the rarity makes it much more better.
Much more better.
Much
Can't
more
argue with
better.
that.
Yeah,
That's probably a good note for us to close out tonight.
I think so.
Much more better. All right.
Much
Well, I
more
wish you a
better.
much more better week. And to all the audience that stuck with us, thanks, guys, very much. Dave, don't forget to clip up that thing with the.
Yes, I
All
will.
right.
Oh, next time we do a free for all, it's my turn to pick a country. So I'm going to pick the most serene Republic of San Marino.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, another micronation. So we'll talk about the San Marinese next time we do a free for all Sunday on the political deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us a like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff on all the channels, whatever channel you're watching us on. We really appreciate it. Helps us, and it will help you because we'll get more people coming in here and talking to us.
Share it
Thanks
with
to
your friends.
Janice, thanks to Sean, thanks to James, thanks to Craig. Um, Thanks to Chuck Moulton, Dr. Moulton. Thank you, everyone who came and talked to us tonight. We really appreciate it. And we will talk to you all next week on the Political Deep Dive.
Say goodnight, AJ.
Good night, AJ.
You didn't end it yet.
Yeah.